No place for losers. Those were my brother's exact words as he blocked the doorway on Christmas Eve. Behind him, the tree glowed. My mother clutched her wine and my father wouldn't even look at me. I stood there holding a bag of gifts for their kids. Gifts I'd spent weeks picking out while my brother smirked like he'd finally won. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "You're right." That night, I made one quiet move that froze every payment, keeping his family afloat. And by New Year's, he was the one knocking on my door. Stay with me to know everything about us. I used to love Christmas. The lights, the cinnamon candles, the way snow softened even the ugliest corners of our street. It was the one day I could pretend our family was normal. But that illusion cracked years ago, slowly, almost gently, like ice splitting under your feet before you hear it break. Growing up, I was the fixer. If a bill was late, I paid it. If someone needed a ride, I dropped everything. When my brother Jacob and his wife Kelly fell behind on their mortgage, I sent money before they even asked. Back then, I told myself it was kindness. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I just wanted to be seen as the daughter who held everything together. My parents encouraged it. "You've always been the responsible one," my mother would say, smiling in a way that looked like pride, but felt like relief. My father rarely said anything at all. He just handed Jacob another plate, another favor, another excuse. Over time, I stopped noticing how much I gave away. School tuition for the kids done. Utility bills covered. When Jacob lost another job, I wired money without thinking. The truth is, it was easier to pay than to argue. The funny part, they called it help, but it was really control, just not mine. Every time I bailed them out, I chained myself tighter to their approval. That's how it works in my family. Generosity is the leash and love is the treat. They dangle in front of you. This year was supposed to be different. For once, I'd planned early, bought thoughtful gifts, booked time off work, even baked the old sugar cookies my grandmother used to make. I imagined laughter, a fire, maybe forgiveness. Instead, I got Jacob's smirk and my mother's silence. No place for losers. Those words didn't just cut, they rearranged something inside me. On the drive home, the car felt heavier, with every turn the wrapped presents glowing faintly in the passenger seat, like reminders of how naive I'd been. By the time I parked outside my apartment, I wasn't crying. I was calm. Too calm. Because for the first time, I saw the truth. I hadn't been part of a family for years. I'd been part of a system that depended on me staying quiet. And this Christmas silence was about to sound very different. That night, I didn't sleep. The words replayed over and over, no place for losers, each one sharper than the last. I'd heard Jacob mock me before, but never like that. Never with the whole family watching. The part that hurt most wasn't his voice. It was my mother's silence. My father's eyes fixed on the floor. That silence said what none of them dared to. We agree with him. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table staring at the list I'd made a month ago. Christmas budget presents, shipping receipts, school fees. My handwriting looked foreign, like a stranger's desperate attempt to buy affection. I traced each line with my finger, realizing how much of my life was wrapped around Jacob's comfort. Every emergency payment had chipped away at my own. Then something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, it was exhaustion. The kind that comes when you finally understand the rules of a game you never agreed to play. I opened my laptop and pulled up my accounts. There they were, transfers labeled, kids' tuition, daycare, grocery, top-up utilities. I clicked through each one, the amounts rising like quiet proof of my stupidity. I didn't slam the laptop shut or cry, I just started ending them. Cancel, cancel, cancel. One by one, I deleted every automatic payment. It took 5 minutes to undo 5 years. I expected to feel guilty. Instead, I felt light. The apartment seemed quieter, even the air warmer. I made another cup of coffee, stronger this time, and stood by the window watching flakes of snow swirl under the streetlights. For once, I wasn't thinking about who needed what or how to fix things. I was thinking about boundaries, how peaceful they sound when you finally draw one. By noon, I had packed the Christmas gifts into storage boxes and taped them shut. I didn't throw them away. I just couldn't look at them yet. Every ribbon, every tag felt like evidence from a crime I'd committed against myself. That afternoon, Jacob texted me. You could have at least dropped off the presents. Kids are waiting." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed one word, "No." He replied almost instantly, "What's your problem?" My fingers hovered above the screen, but I didn't respond. Let him wonder. Let him feel for once what it's like to be met with silence. Jacob's silence lasted all of 2 days. By the third morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails. At first, they were polite. "Hey, what's going on?" Then desperate. "The rent's due. The kids need shoes." Finally angry, "You're selfish. You've changed." I didn't answer a single one. I just watched the notifications stack up one over the other, like proof that my worth to them had always been measured in dollars. When I left for work that morning, the city was covered in fresh snow. It was beautiful in a way that made me ache, a reminder that even the coldest things can look clean when they're untouched. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch with my laptop. The screen glowed with years of history, every payment I'd ever made for Jacob and Kelly's family. I scrolled through line after line, the list so long it looked endless. Mortgage support, school donations, utility bills, camp fees. I felt the familiar mix of pity and resentment rise in my throat, but this time I didn't swallow it back. I printed everything. The pages came out warm, smelling faintly of ink and closure. Then I called the bank and confirmed every cancellation. I even changed my online passwords, a small act that felt almost ceremonial, like locking a door behind me. When the last representative said, "All done," I smiled for the first time in days. By Friday, Jacob showed up at my office. No call, no warning, just barged in, red-faced and sweating under his winter coat. "We need to talk," he hissed. My coworkers froze their eyes, flicking between us. "Not here," I said quietly, walking him to the parking lot. He spun on me the second the door closed behind us. "You think you can just cut us off like that? The kids are suffering? They're your kids," I said evenly. He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Oh, so now you care about responsibility." Something in me snapped, but not in the way he expected. My voice stayed calm. "You're right, I do care about responsibility. That's why I'm finally taking mine back." His face twisted, but I didn't flinch. "You can't do this," he said, stepping closer. "I already did." I turned and walked away before he could answer. The snow crunched under my boots, every step louder than his fury behind me. 3 days passed before I heard from him again. When the phone rang, I almost didn't pick up. But something curiosity, maybe closure, made me answer. Jolie Jacobs said, his voice strained, "We need to talk." About what I asked flatly. "You know what? You've made things impossible for us. The kids?" "Don't I cut in? Don't use them." He sighed dramatically. "Kelly's falling apart. The kids are confused. You used to care." "I still do." I said calm as ever, that's why I stopped. He didn't respond right away, and for a second I thought he'd hung up. Then he said, "You're not the person I thought you were." I almost laughed. "No," I said, "I'm not your wallet anymore." He swore under his breath and hung up. I thought that would be it. I was wrong. 2 nights later, there was a pounding on my door, hard, frantic, the kind that rattles your chest before your brain catches up. When I looked through the peephole, Jacob's face filled. It flushed and wild-eyed. I hesitated, but opened the door just enough to block it with my body. "What are you doing here?" He pushed his hand against the frame. "You need to stop this," he snapped. "You think cutting me off makes you some kind of hero. You're ruining my life." I crossed my arms. "You ruined your life just fine on your own." He stepped closer. "You have no idea what's happening. You can't just walk away from family." I almost smiled. "Family, is that what we are now? You call me a loser. Then remember, I'm family. When the bills show up." His jaw clenched, but before he could answer, Kelly's voice cut through the cold air from the sidewalk. "Jacob, stop!" He froze. She was standing a few feet away, her coat half-zipped, her face pale. Behind her, the car engine hummed softly. "Kelly, go home!" he barked. She didn't move. "No," she said quietly. "We're done." He turned, startled. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes flicked to me, then back to him. "I met with someone today. A lawyer." Jacob's face drained of color. "You... what?" "I know. What you've been doing," she said. "The gambling, the lies, the hidden account. For once he was speechless. I didn't say a word. I just watched the pieces fall. Kelly stepped forward, voice shaking but steady. All those payments Jolie sent, the ones you said went to the kids. I saw the bank statements. You spent them at casinos. He spun toward me, his tone desperate. You told her I shook my head. Didn't have to. Kelly pulled a folder from her bag and held it up. I did, and I gave copies to the lawyer. You can't hide it anymore. He lunged forward, but I stepped between them. Don't I warned? My voice didn't rise, but it carried enough weight to stop him. He stared at me, his breath coming fast. You think you're better than me, he said, his voice shaking. You think this makes you righteous? I took a slow breath, the cold biting my lungs. No, it makes me free. He laughed again, but it cracked halfway through. You'll regret this, he said. You'll see what happens when I'm gone. Kelly's voice was soft but firm. We already have. He looked between us, realizing for the first time that neither of us feared him anymore. Then he turned, shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and stormed off down the street. Kelly exhaled, trembling. I motioned her inside. She hesitated at the door like she wasn't sure she belonged. Come in, I said gently. You don't have to explain. Inside, the air was warm and still. I poured her tea, the cinnamon scent filling the room. She stared into the cup like she could see the years she'd lost. I should have said something that night, she whispered, when they called you a loser. You were surviving, I said. I get it. Tears filled her eyes. He kept saying you owed us, that you were lucky to have a family who needed you. I almost smiled at the irony. That's the thing about people like Jacob. They call it family when they're taking and betrayal when you stop giving. She nodded slowly. He's gone. I told him not to come home. Do you have somewhere to stay? She hesitated. I'll figure it out. You can stay here for now, I said. She looked up, startled. You do that? After everything, I'm not helping him anymore, I said softly. But I'll help you. That night, while Kelly slept on my couch, I sat by the window watching the snow fall. The city was quiet lights flickering through the white. For the first time in years, my apartment didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. Ms. Hart, a man's voice said. This is Mark Dawson. I'm Kelly's lawyer. She gave me your contact info. Is she okay? I asked. She's fine, he said. But there's something you should see. It concerns your brother's use of funds. I think you'll want to be involved. When I met Mark later that day, he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts, bank transfers, withdrawals, casino receipts, hotel charges. My money had built his double life. Kelly's moving forward with separation, Mark said. She's asked me to inform you in case Jacob tries to reach out again. I closed the folder slowly. If he does, I'll handle it. That evening, my phone lit up again, Jacob. I let it ring, then silenced it. But the next call came seconds later, and the next, until the buzzing became constant. Finally, I answered. You ruined my family, he shouted. She's leaving me because of you, no, I said quietly. She's leaving you because of you. He started to speak, but I interrupted. Listen carefully. You used me. You lied and you called me a loser. You've lost your wife, your kids, your home, and your free ride. The only thing you still have is a choice. Stop or sink. There was a pause, a long, broken silence, and then a click. When I looked out the window, the snow had stopped. The world outside was still and clean again, like it had been waiting for this moment. By the end of the week, Kelly and the kids were gone, new state, new start. She texted me a photo of the boys building a snowman. Beneath it, she'd written, "Thank you for everything." I stared at the picture for a long time, smiling. For once, helping didn't feel like losing. It felt like winning quietly. And Jacob, he didn't call again. But word traveled. He'd lost his job, defaulted on his mortgage, moved in with a friend who eventually kicked him out. He was still blaming everyone but himself. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post, didn't gloat. I just deleted the last of our shared accounts, folded the final statement, and whispered to no one in particular. Maybe losers are just people who finally stop paying for everyone else's mistakes. February came quietly soft and gray. The holiday lights were long gone, leaving the streets bare and honest again. Kelly and the kids had settled into their new place up north. She sent small updates photos of snowmen, messy pancakes, drawings taped to new walls. Each message felt like proof that she was breathing again. Jacob, on the other hand, had vanished into the kind of silence that follows a storm. My mother called once, her tone clipped and defensive. "You've made things difficult for your brother," she said. "He's not himself." I almost laughed. Maybe now he finally is. She didn't reply, just sighed and hung up. For the first time in my life, the guilt didn't stick. I'd spent years mistaking sacrifice for love, letting them drain me dry, because I thought that's what good daughters did. But love isn't measured in money, and family isn't defined by who you keep rescuing. I started sleeping better. The air in my apartment felt lighter, the quiet no longer sharp. On weekends, I walked past the bakery where my mother used to take us as kids. The smell of cinnamon didn't sting anymore. It reminded me that sweetness can exist without obligation. A week later, I got a letter from Kelly's lawyer, Mark, again. Inside was a thank you note in Kelly's handwriting. "We're safe now. You gave us that." I folded it and slid it into my desk drawer next to the last photo I ever took of my family together. I didn't keep it out of nostalgia. I kept it as evidence of what survival looks like. One evening, as I watched the snow fall through the window, I realized I wasn't waiting for an apology. I didn't need one. Some stories end quietly, not with revenge, but with peace. Outside, a car passed headlights sweeping across the glass. I caught my reflection in it, steady, calm, unrecognizable from the woman who once begged to belong. That was the night I understood the family I needed wasn't the one I lost. It was the one I finally built inside myself. A few weeks later, I dropped off the last box of Christmas decorations at the donation center. The clerk smiled and asked if I wanted a receipt. I told her no. I'd already kept what mattered the lesson. Driving home, I passed my parents' street. Their house looked smaller now, like a stage set after the play was over. I didn't stop. I just slowed down long enough to notice the same porch light that once glared in my face that night. For a moment, I wondered if they still talked about me, if they called me selfish or heartless. Maybe they did. Maybe they always would. But I wasn't a loser. I was finally free. I parked in front of my apartment, stepped out into the cold, and looked up at the sky. Snow was falling again, soft, steady, clean. If you've ever had to walk away from people who mistook your kindness for weakness, you know this feeling. Share your story. Someone out there needs to hear it too.